Hey everyone, it's Adrienne, and if you're just getting to know me, I'm a public health professional, holistic health practitioner, and a massage therapist. I specialize in burnout recovery and prevention, and I have my own practice called Sunset Moth Wellness. And this talk is entitled, Are You Sick and Broken, or is your body doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing? Okay, here's how this is going to go. I'm going to give you a quick anatomy and physiology lesson. Then I'm going to tell you a story. And then I'm going to tell you about the foundation of the burnout recovery and prevention work that I do. Let's go. Okay, the anatomy and physiology lesson. I'm going to explain to you what the autonomic nervous system is, the ANS, and it's a subsystem of the peripheral nervous system. Don't worry too much about that right now. As the name suggests, your autonomic nervous system controls the activities you do without thinking, kind of, more or less. Your ANS has three subsystems of its own: the sympathetic, the parasympathetic, and the enteric. The main jobs of the ANS is to assist in stress hormone cycles if it's working well, then for the better, and managing other productive and restorative energies. So things that the body is doing on its own as you are being active in life. You may have heard of the sympathetic nervous system. It's located in the middle of the spinal cord, and it's responsible for your fight, flight, or freeze response. And you may have heard of the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's located within the brain and in the lower portion of your spinal cord. And that is the one responsible for rest, digest, and heal response. The enteric nervous system is located in the gastrointestinal tract, in your gut, in your belly. And it actually plays a larger role in digestion than the parasympathetic does. It also takes the lead in assisting your stress hormone cycle by managing most of your neurotransmitters, such as dopamine and serotonin. The ANS plays a huge role in giving you signs and symptoms to let your mind know if your body is not surviving and not thriving. Those signs and symptoms can look different for different people. It can be easy to tell you're surviving. Hello, you're still alive. Okay. But it takes the mind more practice to recognize and understand the signs and symptoms that let us know that we are or are not thriving, and also us interpreting those clues that help us figure out how to, if we're not. I want you to remember that. The ANS is working as we understand that it's supposed to do, is to give us information. So when we're getting burnout symptoms, when you are energized to contribute to community, when you don't feel like you have the will to live, when you feel passionate fire to chase your own dreams, this is the ANS properly working and giving you data about how your body is or is not thriving. So I encourage you to go look up more information on the autonomic nervous system, learn more about it in a learning style that works best for you. That's the crash course on the ANS. Remember that. Here we go. Story time. Okay. 13 years ago, I was hospitalized for the first time because I was very mentally unwell. And it wasn't the first time by far that I was this mentally unwell, but it was the first time that I finally got significant support. So this time I had people around me who knew how to get me help quickly, and they did. There, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And the psychiatrist at the hospital convinced me to go on an antidepressant, something that I had been deeply resistant up until that point doing. Since then, I've been on and off antidepressants over the past 13 years. And I see how it benefits me. And there are pros and cons. Now, I may very well have DNA passed down to me that alters my brain chemistry for the worse. However, when I think back about all these significant depressive episodes that I have had, I can connect it to times in my life when my ANS was rightfully sounding all the bells and alarms that my body's survival was at risk, let alone not even being able to thrive. So perhaps my ANS was doing exactly what we have learned it does to address severe stress in the body. When I was in the emergency room for that first time, I had a nurse say to me while I was actively still in crisis, you may need to start on medication and be on it for the rest of your life. Now, that was a dramatic statement for me at the time, even if it were potentially true. But what I wish she would have at least also said was, it looks like your body is going through a really stressful experience, and your nervous system could use some support in processing all of that energy. We can help you with that here. You are safe now. More or less that. Because I was safe. I was so lucky to have been admitted into a wonderful psychiatric facility that helped me establish at least small ways to thrive. And it did help me to learn more regulation skills for my own nervous system. But it wasn't phrased that way, it wasn't explained that way to me at the time. So, I get out of the hospital and I've continued my life as a person with major depressive disorder to manage. And anytime my ANS sounded any alarms as I was moving further and further away from thriving, right? My healthcare team, my friends, my family, they saw it as me having a depressive episode, I guess brought on by my faulty brain chemistry. And sometimes seen as me having thoughts that were unrealistic and about what I was capable of doing and achieving. So since that time, 13 years ago, it's always been risky for me to not be on my antidepressant and for me to once again start questioning if I should actually be measuring my value in sweat equity and perseverance, right? Like as soon as I start feeling hopeless and helpless and not wanting to move through things, then like that's me being depressed, right? That's me struggling. I don't know about that. So many people have this same experience, right? Like I work with them, I hear their stories. I'm thinking you probably resonate with some or all of this. And I want to also mention, because it's always worth mentioning when I can, that these signs and symptoms of overwhelmed autonomic nervous systems of people of color, especially women, those who are queer, and those who are impoverished are disproportionately dismissed by the medical community when this is happening. Instead, they must be mentally ill, neurodivergent, developmentally delayed, or lying. It's not that these can't be true, but we must consider first that the ANS of the most disenfranchised of us all are likely having chronic alarms sounding. And their bodies are doing exactly what we have learned bodies do when we are under severe stress and lack the capability to thrive. This also very much applies to children, by the way. So, here's more about how I've come to understand these concepts and how I apply them to my work. So, healthcare providers, I really need to stop supporting people in this linear fashion and then citing that a patient's inability or unwillingness to change as the reason why they're not becoming healthier, or assuming that until we get these basic needs met, right, this linear fashion, it has to go in this order, then they're not going to see progress. And those will be the excuses like, oh, they can't do this, they don't have the willpower, or they just don't have these other needs met. Maybe, sometimes. But maybe what we really need to do is start realizing just how much of a basic need it is for people to have opportunities to contribute to community, to be able to cultivate their strengths and passions, and have agency over their resources. And that when they lack these, they don't necessarily have a disease, or they have a disease that begets this need not being met. Just like starvation can lead to scurvy or rickets. And I posit that part of the reason that healthcare providers are struggling to do this is partially because they themselves were not taught how to do this for their own bodies, or how to seek out the right support when they need it. So that is the basis of my burnout recovery and prevention work. We all need to get to know our autonomic nervous systems. Then we need to practice being in relationship with it in ways that help us thrive. So next time that you think your body is not working correctly, consider your circumstances and your thoughts, because it may be working exactly the way we have learned that it's supposed to work in its best effort to help you survive and thrive. I help folks with this kind of work and how to rewire the brain and create new muscle memory in their bodies to be able to be more resilient in all of the services that I provide. So you can check them out on my website at www.sunsetmothwellness.com. Thanks.